Hi, welcome to the Ketriana Yvonne Show, and today's guest is Trevor Fraser, Trevor L. Fraser. Uh, in this episode, we will be discussing trailblazers from the past and who got us to where we are today. So welcome to the show, a virtual show. Trevor, it's good to
Thank
see
you
you.
very much. Thank
And
you.
thank
You
you
too.
for all that you have done and the many contributions that I'll let you tell
Uh,
where you were the one that got us where we are today as far as Vidcapt, your Caribbean Park Festival, and whatever else you want to share with us.
mhm.
So, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And Katriana, I've seen some of your shows, and I think it's a wonderful thing that you're doing as far as I think documenting for posterity
Hmm.
some of the things that are around us today that we sometimes just take for granted.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's good that you say that. I just did an interview where someone's doing a documentary on public access. And I was able to share some videos of some footage from someone from 20 years ago. And so they were able to look back, and I was sharing with how it was a lady that lived in my building. And I had no idea that this woman was a poet. She was one of the first brick producers. So I was able to share that because someone had just recently uploaded that information on YouTube. So it does come in handy. And so in the future, 20 years from now, when people are saying, oh, for all the things that you're known for today, um, they can go back and find out that you were the one that implemented so many wonderful programs that still continue today. So why don't you start with telling us about VidCap, how it was a vision for you back in the 80s, your direction as far as how you feel video, what's next since you were ahead of time, then maybe you can lead us.
Right, right. And it's apropos that you said that we talking about documenting, because the whole idea of VidCap started with me really realizing that, I was always in the arts, into the arts. My background is television. And so when I started writing first poetry and then plays, and then of course I worked for a theater company back then as well, just doing lighting, technical stuff. But I realized that there's got to be a way of me putting what I know in terms of the television part of it, along with the theatrical part of it, what actors do on stage. And so I came up with this concept to document the performances done by actors, whether it's off Broadway, off Broadway, or wherever. And so that they can use it to hone their skills. Because oftentimes, I'm pretty sure, and you ask the average actor, actress, hey, listen, how do you hone your skills? And they would say the same thing that we all say, well, I practice, right? And then, but the question is, do you get a chance to view what you've done in practice, right? So that you can correct and get it to another level. And the answer is probably, well, not really, because we live for today. We live for the moment, for the now. Now, it's a little different with dancers, I think. Or with musicians, I think, because they record, they have to record it, and then they listen, and then they re-record, and so on. So their process is cleaner. And so I came up with VidCap, and VidCap, VIDCAPT, stands for Video Center of Arts Performances in Theaters. And the whole concept was to videotape performances in theaters so that actors can hone their skills. So I incorporated it as a not-for-profit because it wasn't a thing I saw as I wanted to make money from. I just wanted to help in a way in the arts. And after I incorporated, I started, because now I'm a playwright, I write and so on. And I started working with different actors. And I started to record, and then Actors Equity Union, I called them up. I said, hey, listen, I wanna record these actors and so that they can utilize these tapes. They said, well, you can record them, but only a minute because of the union rules. I said, well, and they said, well, usually we give news, like any newscast, the opportunity. If it's a minute, it's fine for a newscast, or 30 seconds, it's fine to use it, a clip on the news. I said, well, that's not going to work, because the whole idea is to hone these skills. They said, well, no, you can't do it. So I said, okay, all right. And that was it with them. I said, you know what? I said to myself, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to produce my own shows. I'm going to hire actors to perform. And I'm going to videotape them, right? Because these are my productions. Come to find out, about 2 years or so after, maybe a year after I had incorporated and started to do this work, I heard Lincoln Center is videotaping actors, performances that are done, right? I said, well, wait a second. So Lincoln Center's got a pass, right? I know they had to deal with Actors Equity, the union, right? I said, so they get a pass, but I don't get a pass. I says, okay, so the politics and whatever else has seeped into that area. So I continue doing what I do, what I've been doing. And then, of course, one thing led to the next. I started looking at doing, in addition to the off-Broadway stuff, looking at other things, cultural events and so on. So I started producing other things, concerts and other events, and I document all my concerts. I have all my concerts. And then I started doing radio programs, and I document all my radio programs, all the shows that I've done. And so again, even back then, we saw the inequity, right, in the arts.
Right.
And you realize, because you've worked in the arts, some of the dynamics and some of the inequities that we all face. And so that's how the whole concept of Vidcapt came about. And what we did to kind of survive and let the organization grow is to branch into other areas.
Right. And branch into other areas you did. So I do remember you took your production to the American Federal Theater. You took it to Prospect Park, which pretty much is what's being done today, showing movies and films in the park. I'm sure they were doing it before, but not to the extent that
actually. Let me tell you about Prospect Park, right? So I decided I wanted to do. I looked at the West Indian Day Parade, and I said, well, wait a second. There's something missing from the West Indian Day Parade. Once a year, we come out, jump up, and have a great time, and then nothing else. I said, how about the other aspects of our culture? Why aren't those things being highlighted? So what I did with Vidcapt, I said, okay, I'm going to start a Caribbean Cultural Heritage Week program. And that Caribbean Cultural Heritage Week program, you see some of the stuff is on this wall here, right? The Caribbean Cultural Heritage Week program consists of honoring those individuals who have made indelible impressions or outstanding contributions to the United States. These are Caribbean Americans.
Right.
And in addition to that, I had a series of workshops on the Caribbean culture. And then I had the festival, the big event in Prospect Park, which is a Caribbean Craft and Food Fair.
And can you tell people the name of the festival and the years that it ran from so they could say, oh, yeah, I went to that festival?
Okay, so the festival ran for about almost 20 years.
Right.
And
that
it was in
start
Prospect
back-
Park in the Nethermead. And here's how that came about, right?
Right.
So they
Oh, wait.
didn't,
So the year to be exact.
it started in the 80s, in the mid 80s. It started
Right,
in the
around
80s,
1982.
but it
83.
was, yeah, but it was always in June. It was always the last or the third Sunday of June.
Right.
Well, here's what happened. The band shell in Prospect Park wasn't set up yet. You know, the band shell where they have the big
Right.
concert? It wasn't
Mhm.
set up as yet. So they told me, they said, excuse me, listen, we're setting up the band shell. Why don't you, because I wanted to do the festival on the, I call it the Caribbean side of the park, the Black side of the park.
Mhm.
I said, everything, all the programs that are done in Prospect Park, it seems it goes to the East End
Mhm.
or the West End and not to the Flatbush end. I want to keep my festival there. And they were trying to encourage, because the band shell said, well, we building the band shell and we setting it up. There was nothing in the band shell yet. Once in a while, there are things. I said, no. So they put me in the Nethermead. And the Nethermead was where I started to do my events. My very first event, I got $500 from not the BACA, the Brooklyn Arts Council at that time. And with $500, I was determined I'm going to do something that year. I had about 20 people, 25 people, one vendor, right? And I brought my stereo from home, and that's how we did. And I had Moko Jumbies, the guys on stills. That's how we started out.
Mhm.
And it grew and grew. And there were years where people couldn't find the Nethermead because it was so hidden. But it grew and grew and grew to the point where we began to get 10,000 people to the event, 12,000 people to the event, 15,000 people, and so on. And so the event grew in masses, and it grew in terms of, we had our production problems over the years, but we eventually learned how to do things better. And so that event in the park was the forerunner of the Caribbean events that you see in parks now.
Right.
Okay, that was the event, because as a matter of fact, Air Jamaica saw what we were doing and brought their event, and that's when I stepped out. They brought their event, and what the park department did was confuse people. Our event was going on at that time for about 14 years, over 10 years. Brought the event, placed their event the week after our event, so people were totally
Right.
confused, right? They saw what we were doing and they killed a good thing. So I decided I had enough. I'm done, right? Their event probably lasted 2 years or 3 years, because at one of the events I went to, they had fenced that Nethermead area so they can charge people to come into the park. I said, that's not, what my intention was in bringing an event to that side of the park.
Right.
So I stepped away, but out of that event came the other venture that I did, which was the Caribbean restaurant guide, because I had food vendors and so on. So that came out of it.
Right. And did that come out of the taste of, what was it? The taste of New York?
The tasting con, the taste of the Caribbean. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what happened was,
wait. So do you remember, was there a taste of, did we have a taste of anything?
I don't know, but I don't think there was a taste of the Caribbean, because they've never had a Caribbean contest. And I did the first contest, a tasting contest of Caribbean foods in park, but it was in Wingate Park. And it was covered by Newsday, gavel to gavel.
Mm-hmm.
Out of that event, I got an invitation to the Smithsonian Institution to set up a Caribbean pavilion in DC for the Folk Life Festival, right? Where I was in charge of, it ran for 2 weeks. I was in charge of a Caribbean tent. I flew people in to DC from New York, put them up in a hotel, and we spent 2 weeks out there. We had about over 1,500,000 people who attended the event
Mhm.
over those 2 weeks. But it's an event that the Smithsonian had been doing.
Right. Hmm. Yeah, I kind of remember
Mhm.
being that I did live in DC. So would you say the things that propelled you at that time to do these things, would you say it was based on, I think you touched on it in the beginning, that it was because of the disparities and the um, things weren't so equal, or it was just missing, period? So you found a need for these things, and you, with your creativity, you were able to produce these things, and on a large scale, um, with probably not a lot of funding, being that it was new. And like you said, you did it with $500. And so
To
basically,
start, to start, to
right,
start,
right,
and then companies started, giving us
right. You
money.
got
Yeah.
sponsorship.
Hmm.
So basically, you, like I said, you were the pioneer for many of the events from the beginning that are happening now, just on a bigger scale, larger, with more sponsorship.
Right.
So I want to commend you on that, because that was big. And so I wanted to know, like I said, now it was VidCap, and that was video, and now we're into the age of digital. And and it made me think, like, almost like it's pretty much your idea. It's pretty much sort of like what we're doing now. We're documenting and recording for TV,
Hmm.
but it's in another form
Right.
that now is stored on a cloud, you know,
Hmm.
until, the person uploads it and does whatever they want to do. So, what is your vision, if you have a vision, as far as with the digital and everything that we're doing now, do you see any drawbacks to documentation wise? It's almost like pictures. Like, when we used to take pictures, we could always get them developed, have them in a book.
Hmm.
Now we have everything on a camera, which is fine. It's in a cloud. But when we change phones and we go into different technologies, do you feel like we're going to lose a lot of things that were easier before in this new advanced world? Because
Hmm.
I know so many people still, they get a new phone,
Right.
they don't know to sign into they don't save it to their Google Drive, and they lose those pictures and whatever other important documentation.
So the directory started out in print form, and
Right,
it was written up by the New York Times. I had really, really good press on it, and I didn't solicit the press. They came after me because it was the first one of its kind. It
right.
even got a grant from the city during Dinkins' mayorship. It got a grant from the city, a tourist grant.
Hmm.
And out of that came the idea that I started, which was to do tasting tours
Right.
at
And
Caribbean
once again,
restaurants.
something that,
Right. And
is going on now.
exactly. So there was one connection to to the other. And so the tasting tour, I never really fully did. I did a tasting tour. I did a test tour, but I never really fully got into that because, you get sidetracked with so many things.
Right.
So I'm an educator.
Hmm.
Now, but I've always been an educator. And because with the festival, I wanted to put that education part of it. That's why I had the workshops and
Hmm.
and the award presentation to those people who've made contribution. So as an educator now who teaches at universities out on Long Island, one of the things that we do now is the Zoom stuff. But one of the I teach public speaking. And one of the things that I emphasize to students now is the fact that, you know what, we're in a digital age. Yes. The problem that we're having is integrating communication with the technology. And that's where the millennials are failing because they're snapping and they're gramming And
Uh-huh.
then booking Facebook, I'm talking about Instagram and Facebook and
Uh-huh.
Snapchat and so on. And they're spending so much time in this social media. It's media, but the language in that media is different,
Right.
right? They play by
Not real.
different rules. But here's the problem. The communication acumens are being destroyed. I
Right.
am fortunate to every year, every semester, get new students. Because when I was doing those events, I just started teaching in colleges too, right? Uh, and so I'm fortunate to get a batch of students every semester. And I asked them, I said, do you guys think you're getting smarter or not? That's a real question. And I said, and some of them said they don't, some of them said they don't think they're getting smarter. I said, no, you're not getting smarter. The
Right.
technology is getting smarter. Smartphones, I don't want to say, but the
Right.
phones are smart,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that is a problem. So one of the courses that I teach, oral communication, is basically how do we communicate better and well interpersonally and in the business arena? And how do we integrate communication with the technology so that we are more responsible, so that
Right.
we're thinking more before we speak, and so we and also so that we improve in the way we communicate. And that's a problem.
So what would be your top 10 ways to improve upon communication in today's world that you give to your students?
You said top 10?
Yeah, or five.
5, read more. We're not reading enough.
Right.
Number
And I would
one.
agree.
Yeah. We have to, if you want to improve your vocabulary, if you want to improve your critical thinking, you got to read more,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's number one. Number two, spend less hours on social media. And there's no reason for people to have 5 different accounts. You have 5 social media accounts. And so what people are looking for power, or they're looking for attention, whatever you
Right.
want to call it. And they're looking for likes.
Right.
And so
Right.
because they're looking for that attention, they get caught up in that. Everyone wants to be a star.
Right. And it's, well, yeah, and I think it's just that's the mechanism that moves the engine of marketing and advertising. So it's driven by the need for people to want to have likes, to have conversations, to for the algorithms to pick up that you're getting some kind of increase so that they trigger you.
Yeah.
And it's about money for some people, but I don't really think that is with so many people on the internet. I don't really think it's that much money that people are generating. It's, because it's like everything else. If you're not there in the head of the game,
Right.
you're way behind. So whatever you're trying to do, it's, be done moved on to the next thing, which, right now I believe we will be leaving this the 5G and going into the AI. And then that's a whole nother arena,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
And it leads me to the third thing,
Right.
really,
Mhm.
what you're saying, which is have more real conversations.
Right.
We're not having real conversations anymore,
Right.
right? We speak internet language to each other now.
Right. People don't even write cursive anymore. They don't even teach it.
Right.
So, people think that writing, like, I guess because I'm older, is a little different. Like,
Mhm.
communication to me is not sending me a chat. Like, I'll tell everybody, if it's more than 3, requires me to send you something more than 3 times, that's a conversation.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I don't really learn all the little meanings for these things. I'm not really into the emojis, and
Right.
it's like I really don't have time. And just the fact that the miscommunication that happens in those conversations. So for us to be in an advanced way now, and we're dealing with that as our source of communication. And as you could tell, it's people that end up, they have fights because of miscommunication from a text, relationships fail.
Right.
People, they're using this term receipts. I got the receipts, so you got the documentation. It's just a whole never crazy.
And again, it comes back to what I said before. How are we integrating
Right. Mm-hmm.
the technology with communication? And to all appearances, we're not doing a good job, because you mentioned texting.
Right.
Texting has been a problem where someone would create an error during a text message, and guess what they do to correct it? They retext the person. I tell my classes all the time, I said, look, if there was an error when you sent a text to someone, why would you send another text to try to correct that? Why don't you pick up the phone and you call the person, right? And so the fourth and the fifth, I think, is more of that personal dialogue, personal dialogue. Nothing can replace personal dialogue. This would have been different if we were talking to each other, maybe on the phone, or maybe texting, or maybe emailing, right? But it's a little more personal, it's a little more direct when I'm able to see the person, when we're able to see each other and have the conversation. So we need some corrections to do. And I think, number one, yes, students are being, and people in general are being challenged because there's so much distraction. Our attention span is now 8 seconds.
I would agree.
It's 8 seconds. And so understanding that, you see what our problem is. We know what the problem, I see what the problem is. How many of us are willing to correct it?
Because like my challenge for myself is, you live in this fast-paced Zoom life now, and like doing well in this time of COVID. Me myself being a writer, it's like everyone has a book. I order the book. It's like, when do I have time to sit still and read? But not only that, my attention span is not what it used to be. So it may be less than 8 seconds. I was able to read a book yesterday, and I can't, and I'm being honest, I can't tell you the last time. Well, I did read a book last month, but the amount of books that I have stacked up versus maybe before, computers really got, I was an avid reader, constantly reading any book I had, which I have a lot of books. They were all read books. It's not like I just collected the books. So now it's like, okay, I got to snap out of it and actually read these books and tune in to what's going on. Even though I'm fully engaged in that world. But in all honesty, that's the way it is. It's like you can't possibly keep up. Well, if people do, I know people, you have the audio books, right? You can listen to an audio book if that's your preference, and that may help. And maybe that's what people do. I mean, we might have some speed readers. And I can't even understand, like, if a family and they have children, they have to help them with their homework, how all of this reading goes on. I'm a single person, no children, and I'm telling you, I don't even have time. So that's definitely going to be a setback for us. So we have to do everything that we can do to rectify that now. So I'm glad you brought that up. And I think you're on your fourth point. Of
I said the fourth and the fifth have to do with more personal. More personal, one-on-one. So to really and truly integrate it, probably just picking up, by the way, on something you said, which is quite true, because all of us have gotten so busy, and we multitask. We feel like the days are not long enough to get through all the things. I went online and started, you can check out the book online virtually.
Right.
And I started reading Birth, Ben
Mm-hmm.
Wattenberg.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the book checked out for 14 days. I read it
Uh-huh.
for one day and never got a chance to get back to it. I'm probably supposed to be checking it back in, unless,
Right.
in a couple of days. And so, so I understand the point that you're making. And so I think the whole effort here, what I'm talking about is integrating the technology with the communication. We need to put the communication first, right?
The
And
personal communication.
personal
Right?
communication, right?
Yeah.
Personal communication. And I think if you stop doing something, if you don't practice something enough, you're going to get lousy at it. And we're not practicing communicating with each other enough. We've
Right.
gotten lousy at it.
Right.
We've
And
gotten bad at it.
and that I took there's a course, Arts and Democracy, that they have for community organizers. And it was a project that we did they gave us 7 symbols to pictures. So everybody had the same symbols, and you had to use the symbols to tell a story. And for this past 6 months, how things were during COVID. And it was, just taking the symbols and like say something was happy, or, the 7 things. And then the person was able to correctly read the picture accurately, because it was only pictures that meant a specific thing. And I found that to be very interesting, that I was like, something is wrong with our communication, because if people could just do this one picture and for a 6-month period and tell a story that you were trying to let them know clearly and precisely, then I'm saying we have all of these words, right? And all of these different vehicles of communicating different ways, and it's still getting lost in translation. So I don't know. I mean, it was a great exercise, and it told me a lot, because I'm like, right off the bat, they just read the picture and got what, my story for 6 months in detail. And I was able to do the same. And, that was the whole exercise.
Right.
And like I said, that had me question so many things that have gone wrong. And like that maybe we're missing, some things. And, we're talking about generation after generation. And, this is the technology, the kids come out, they have a phone. It's like, that's their way of communicating. But yet, as we can all see, if two friends are with each other, they're not communicating. They're both on their phone.
Couple of years ago, I decided I'm going to do an unscientific survey.
Right.
I sat in the parking lot of the college. My class was starting, in about 45 minutes. I sat in the parking lot. I said, I want to see how many people walk out of the buildings with someone else and they're talking to them, versus how many people walk out with someone else and they're both on their phones.
Exactly.
It amazed me.
Yeah.
It amazed me how we are not talking. Even in my classrooms, I go into the classroom, the students are there, and guess what they're doing? Everyone is in their zone. Right? And I tell them, I said, hang on a second. I said, this is a communication class. Why aren't you guys talking to each other? You just in your own world, in your own space, which is okay to get into. But when you're in the presence of other human beings,
exactly,
let's interact, And one of my rules is, when I'm on Zoom,
I don't want to see a black screen if I'm teaching the class. No, I don't. And I don't call it lecture. I call it discussion.
Right.
Right. And so I said, if we're having a discussion, I need to see you to have that discussion. Right. So I think we need to get back there. And the other things that I'm currently doing, like I have now, I've taken the Caribbean festival and the rest, not a festival, but the restaurant portion of it, where to dine. It's now online. So I've kept up with the technology. It's online now. It's CaribbeanAmericanFoods.com, and folks can go there. And again, I always work the educational part of it with it. So on the site, I have a place, if you want to find out about the Caribbean island, what the national dish is, what the population is, what the coat of arms, the flag, it's right there. Right. So I've worked that in, and plus you can order whatever you want in terms of Caribbean foods, and we specialize in hard to find foods.
Right, and a
we
very
ship
nice
all parts
website.
of the nation and the world.
Yeah.
So you have to evolve, yes, with the technology, correct. But is the technology you, or how are you using it? Is it using you, or are you really using it? So I always keep in mind, I've got to integrate communication with technology, communication with technology. And then once we remind ourselves that, then we find a balance, I think.
Yes. Great. Well, okay, so we kind of went from arts and culture to the Caribbean heritage to communications, which is what you teach in public speaking. And it's okay. And then you also have a book. We're not going to go all into that, but you should tell us about your book and the other things that you specialize in.
Okay, so that's where I am now, right? And it's amazing to me. But the journey didn't start now. The journey started years ago because my mom always bought me a lot of books. And so I read, but I was always interested in the mind.
Right.
What is, and my purpose. Why am I here? And what am I doing? How do I fit in? And so the book itself is, the subtitle can be 444 Connection. But the book is about body connection. And it's really and truly, how can you begin to master self?
Right.
Right. And so I integrated what I learned. I did a television show on mind control. And I learned a lot from that, to the point where I began to explore it more and more, then write about it. But I also teach it, not at a college. Because the colleges, a lot of students, the stuff that I tell students, they're blown away because students are not taught about themselves.
Exactly.
They're taught about things, but it's never about who you really are. So the book, and then I have another book that is waiting to be published. But along the way, I started doing hypnosis. And regressions and things with the mind that it really, I didn't think at first that I am capable of, but then I started doing it, and then I started teaching people how it's done.
Right.
And it's amazing. It's opened up a whole nother different portal for me.
Right. And I can testify to that because I took one of your one of your sessions back in, it was a while back.
Yeah.
So only thing I could say about that, it was, I could still remember the experience, and it definitely works. And something that is memorable because you can still remember the partnering with people and what you were able, well, for me, what I was able to see.
Without using the eyes, right? Without the physical eyes.
Right, or feel. And, you know, and that was, it's been a while. And so now, you know, like for me, when I hear all of these new, what supposedly new things, these new people doing stuff, I'm like, oh, I don't think so. Like, you know, been there, been doing it a long time. Don't think that, you know, some of the people doing things are I ain't gonna say they're not qualified,
Mhm.
but I think a lot of things are being presented now as if it's something new. And it doesn't, for me, it doesn't fit with my spirit because,
Yeah.
I think certain people, like me, I was a big Wayne Dyer fan. And, he started back in the 70s. And recently I've heard about other people, a lady I told you about, Dorothy Cannon, who was a visionary back in the 60s, writing a book about transgression. But she didn't even want to put the book out because she knew people would be thinking she was crazy,
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Well,
so she said,
Notre Dame couldn't put his stuff out. They would have killed
well, women is a whole different thing. We're
him.
still trying to
True,
be equal.
true, true. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's been fascinating. So I think, to just give you your full honor, because I just feel like you have touched and led us in so many ways that, and most people, they may not know who you are. So I'm going to say your name again, Trevor L. Fraser. Look them up. Check out VidCap. Check out the Caribbean Festival.
Caribbean craft and the Caribbean culture, the Caribbean American, the website is CaribbeanAmericanFood.com.
Right.
But
And
the
it's a very
festival is
nice
no, I don't do the
website.
festival. I don't do the
Right.
festival anymore.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I still do other things that
Right.
connects us in terms of Caribbean foods and so on.
Right. And it's another Caribbean. I just saw this like 2 weeks ago. So another woman that's doing a directory with Caribbean restaurants. And I'm like, that's nice, but that's not. Hey, but I know who did that first. So, like I said, just to give homage to and credit to not the forgotten, because I'm sure I had the opportunity of working with you way back when, and to be witness to the creativity, the insight into so many things. So I thank you for that. We didn't even talk about poetry. So Trevor, so we have, just going to recap VidCap. Thank you for VidCap. Thank you for the self-mastery courses, all the work that you do with your students. And I'm gonna let you fill us in about that. Where do you teach?
Yeah, I usually don't like mentioning the colleges. I generally I don't like giving free promotion to these institutions all the time.
Okay.
But let's just say I teach at two private colleges.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I mention one, I have to mention them all. I teach at two private colleges and one state college
Okay.
in the
Gotcha.
Long Island area.
Right. So people, do your research, look them up. All you new students that want to be up on the future from a great teacher in public speaking that has given a lot of dedication to where we are today. Check them out.
And
So
by the way, a lot of students don't know much about what I've done, what I did.
right, and
They
that's
don't
why
know
that's
much.
why we're doing the show today.
Right. But see, for me, it's like chapters, right? Like
Right,
transitions. So I move there. What I need them to know is what's happening in the now, right? But
right,
what happened is very important because for me, it leads to the now, right?
right.
And so, yeah, so they don't know much about this, what we're talking about, all these things that I have done uh, and still continue to do. But that's okay because I've gone through the transition and I believe I'm in a place now where, yeah, I'm using the technology.
So where do you want to? Where do you think that, since you led us to where we are today, where do you think um, what's the main things we should be focused on now?
Okay. When you say we, are you talking about our
We,
community?
society, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. With all the things that have happened to this country in the past month,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I post to my students is this. Do you think communication had a problem with that? Do you think there was a breakdown in communication or miscommunication? What do you think led to that? Because I really want them to understand the importance of not only communicating, but how are we communicating? What are we communicating? Right? There used to be a saying, sticks and stones could break my bones, but words could never hurt me. Whoever made up is a liar.
Right.
Because what happened there began with words.
Exactly. And the importance of words
And
and
who it's coming from.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in this world of technology, something that we never dealt with before, it has been, online bullying,
Yeah.
things that we didn't necessarily deal with that kids deal with today and adults.
Right.
People base their life on how many people like them, what somebody commented on. People can put out information that travels the whole world, ruin somebody's reputation.
Right.
We live in a what they call reality TV. But I don't know what is reality, because it seems like for TV now, what was reality shows, which is not really reality.
Right. Because they contrive some of those scenes anyway. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's being pushed on, the viewers as being real when
Right.
it's not.
Right.
And, most people, young people now, they're dealing with things. This is all they know. They didn't have the opportunity of knowing what real communication was,
Right.
not constantly being, liked
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
your phone.
And it's gotten worse over the 4 years.
Yeah.
The
Oh
last
my,
administration. You hear a lot about fake news,
right.
alternative truths.
Right.
This is communication. These are words that
Exactly.
people play with.
Right.
And
Those are that's laying the ground for what's to come by telling people this is, what you hear is not real, and that people are making this stuff up, that, people feed into that and they
yeah,
buy what you want to give them.
yeah,
And that's exactly what happened. And
yeah.
is that oh goodness. Yeah, that was a whole traumatic experience right there that we don't even have to mention, that we actually lived through a whole 4 years of stuff that was like a tragedy,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it wasn't Shakespeare. It was like
Yeah.
real life.
Yeah.
So,
People
but anyway,
people don't know the problem is, and I think this is where we are. We've got to begin to discern the truth
mhm,
from the propaganda.
right,
And our country really and truly very, very good at propaganda.
mhm,
And the thing that I think the responsibility is on us, really, but the media also bears part of the responsibility, right?
exactly,
Because when you create certain scenarios, create certain monsters, create certain situations, and then when it happens, why are we surprised?
exactly. Well, what you also have to remember too, we have no what you really would call real journalism. Now, 4 years ago, about so many journalists lost their job, and the correspondents or the pundits, as they say, the people that just came out of nowhere
Mhm.
and started being the people that we took our news from. Some of them maybe gotten better, but they just came up with these people. Nothing had to be proven. It
Right.
became, matter of fact, because I stopped watching TV for 4 years, and I used to call it not the news, but the opinions. It just became you reporting what somebody thinks. You're having a conversation of correspondence with what their opinion is. And news is factual. And I remember
It's
those days.
supposed to be. It's supposed to be. And
Well,
I think, and I
well,
won't
going
put
back,
it on all, huh?
right, but I'm going back to when in order for you to report something as a story, you had to have proof, and you didn't speculate on what was going to be. You didn't give your opinion. You only reported the facts,
Right.
and that was it. It was no,
Right.
this is what I think. What do you think? And that's what we live on now, and that's very dangerous. And I don't know really when, you know, we're going to really look at that and how it impacted us. I mean, because they're, you know, they're watching videos and looking at something that happened in a day. But yeah, I don't think anyone's really went back to think, how did that happen? They you know, they're just touching on the surface stuff,
Yeah.
but not how deep it really is and how dangerous, you know, and when it started and how it's continuing. So yeah, thanks for bringing that fact up, because that's so important. So that's why we rely on you for your for your vision and insight.
Yeah.
And
You know what? You know what? The thing is, when you're doing things, when we all do it, we're doing things at the moment. We don't think about, I didn't think about, oh, geez, you know, what impact this is going to make. I saw a need to do something.
right,
And I figure, okay, no one else is doing it. I'm going to fill that spot. I'm going to fill that
exactly,
need, you know, and so we don't think about that. I wasn't thinking, oh, geez, how much money am I going to make from this? No, no, that's not. I think if you ask most people, that's not what they're thinking about. Because
right.
if a person is thinking about how much money they're going to make from doing something,
Yeah,
their mind is not on that something that they're doing.
right. And it's
Right.
probably not going to be longevity in that something.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah. So great. Thank you. So
Thank you.
I guess I think I touched on pretty much. I mean, I'm sure it's probably about 5 other things that
Mhm.
you were in the foreground, but I can't think of it right now.
Right.
You know, I do think of your play, Neighbors, Lovers, and Friends, which was briefly a play about a Caribbean family relationship with a Caribbean.
With an African American.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, even later when, what is it, collard greens and, help me.
Collard greens and not con pollo. It was
Oh, Lord.
the Spanish name, but
Right,
I
right,
know what you're
right.
talking about.
Yeah.
When
So
that
when that came out, I went to see it and I'm like, um, I didn't, but anyway, it's weird that a subject that here we are, we're not
yeah,
in the 80s anymore, and that these are still plays that
right,
have to be
right,
presented. It's like,
exactly.
are we really moving ahead? Or are we kind of still stuck in the past? And
The
how
more
can,
things change, the more they
huh?
stay the same. The more things
Yeah,
change, the more they stay
exactly.
the same.
Yeah. So, yeah, how can we zoom into the future in a better way? So,
Communication in the right way.
communication, real
Communicate. The bottom
communication.
line is keep integrating it properly.
Hmm.
Integrating the communication with the technology.
Right,
Don't use the technology just to further one person's aim because it's very destructive. And
right,
I bet you there are people who haven't done that well, and it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again because we haven't learned yet how powerful technology is, and but how more powerful than that, how powerful communication is. And until we understand the nuances and learn how to use communication, engaging brain before mouth going into motion, right? It's going to happen again. It's going to happen. The technology is available. It's going to happen. Everyone now is a reporter, good or bad.
right. Yes. Yeah. So, yeah.
So,
Thank
yeah,
that.
thank
And I
you.
think that's an important point that you bring up to lead us to thinking about that,
Yeah,
because we're sort of off track. We got so many things now to deal with, and we're dealing with what's going on in the moment. But, just to get to the root of what's missing and where we got off track. And it's all in communication.
Yeah.
And, you know, like you said, to integrate where we're going, how do you connect everything so that we move forward connected?
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that. So thank you for giving this vision
Thank you.
to meditate on and push us forward. And thank you once again for sharing your time and giving up your time in the past to create so much.
Was a growth for me. So
Huh?
was a growth for me too. So
It was a thrill.
it was a period for me. It was a
Oh
growing
yeah.
period for me
Yeah.
as well. So I didn't
Right.
feel I was really giving
Well,
anything up.
well,
I was just hungry.
right. And you know, some people are hungry and they stay hungry. So you were hungry and you
True.
fed your hunger.
Yeah.
And so therefore, we are blessed to have the history that is being presented today to let people know, hey, this is somebody I never heard of. Didn't I know we have all these festivals, and I know we have you know, I heard this name Vidcapt, but I don't know what it means. And, you know, so it's
Yeah.
important that you did do this work. And it's, you know, and for me, it's not gone unnoticed because you did a lot. And, you know, that's what pushes us forward. Everyone, we all have a purpose. And some people, you know, they don't tune into what it is. And
Right.
then some people are aware of what their purpose is and they become fully engaged,
Yeah.
and it pushes us forward. So you did that. And
Thank you.
that's something that is admirable. And I just want to thank you
Thank you.
for
Thank
all
you.
those that came under your direction
Uh-huh.
and all those that came before you that groomed you.
Right. That's right.
So many, I remember so many people, and I'll just shout out a couple of names: Cynthia Belgrave,
Oh
Lonzo
yeah.
Players,
Oh
um,
yeah.
the Henry Street Settlement, which
Right.
is, you know, still around.
Mhm.
But like you said, Baca, I'm like, wow.
Yeah. Brooklyn Arts Council.
Yeah.
Charlene Victor. I was trying to remember this. Charlene Victor. She's long gone, but
Uh-huh.
hey, she I would never forget that day. I walked into the office. She was right at the museum. That's
Uh-huh.
where her office was, in the museum.
Okay.
I walked in the office. I said, I would like to do a Caribbean festival.
Uh-huh.
She says, and she had this kind of voice, you know. She said, we don't have
Uh-huh.
money. We don't have money. I said, well, how much can you, anything? She says, I'll give you $500. I said,
Mm-hmm.
I'll take it, right? Because for me, it wasn't the money. It was,
Right.
I've got to do this.
Right.
Whatever little I have, I'm going to do it. And
Mhm.
so it starts out that way. And
Right.
just follow your dream, follow that faith, because I tell people, there are two F's in your life: faith, fear. They don't live in the same place. They cannot exist. It's like light and darkness cannot
Mhm.
exist in the same. If you don't have faith, there's only one thing that you exhibiting: fear.
Mhm.
Take fear away. What are you actually exhibiting?
Right.
Faith, right?
Right.
Those are the two
Push
F's.
into, yeah, like push into the fear and knock it out the way, and you'll end up in your future.
That's right. And
Yeah.
fear is not real anyway. It's an
Right.
emotion.
Mm-hmm.
It's an emotion you bring in.
Right.
Yeah.
The only thing that's real is love.
That is true. That is true.
That's
Yeah.
well.
Even that people have warped. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
All
great.
right.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Trevor. It's been wonderful connecting and
Mm-hmm.
honoring you today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. And thank you for
Okay.
reaching out and for giving me this opportunity, because I've never really, honestly, spoke about this in this kind of forum, in
Right.
really any place. I haven't done an autobiography. I don't feel there's any need for me to do an autobiography. What I do is I like writing, and that's how I express my thoughts and express myself. But I'm glad that you have given me an opportunity to do that in this forum, and I appreciate that. Thank you. And
Yeah.
by the way, it's great, really great that you have this forum
Mm-hmm.
to offer to the public.
Yeah, even though I have to take it into doing it Zoom, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, if I had to get you to a studio, it probably wouldn't happen. So
Yeah.
there are blessings in everything. I have another person that I know made a lot of contributions in so many ways. And I think I was trying to get this person from my first show. And I just contacted them the other day and it was like, come on, can we do a Zoom show?
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
so it is an opportunity.
Yeah,
So
it
I
is.
understand, like Dan, that you said you never really used the
Not
forum.
my story, not all this information,
Right.
together. Not all this.
Right.
I didn't even touch on the radio part of it because I did a lot
Right.
of radio shows. I didn't touch
Right.
on that, but that's for
Right.
some other day.
Forerunner again, radio when it was radio.
Yeah.
Now it's podcast, same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
But like I said, a forerunner in communications.
Mhm.
So thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
So
Okay.
all right.